So on the 1st of April at St Giles, Cripplegate, Lloyd's choir will be doing their annual spring concert. And the main work this year is a very unusual commission in memory of Christine Didelot, sang in our alto section for a number of years. And she was an exceptional, extraordinary person I discovered during her time here, because she was a businesswoman, but she sang in lots of different choirs, and she was hugely enthusiastic about choral singing, to the extent that not only should she sing in lots of choirs, but she ended up running and being very much involved in the key members of the International Sanastevna, which is an international choral festival that she set up with some other people. While she was organising the last of these, back in 2016, she suddenly discovered that she was terminally ill, and she was only 49 and with a very aggressive cancer. And on realising this, she decided that she wanted to commission a piece from me. She'd managed to get herself well enough through the drugs or whatever to come to this event. She was absolutely very determined woman to come to this event, and she said, "I want to see you to talk about this. Come and see me at the hospice." We had a very intense conversation about the kind of piece she wanted, and I said to her, "Well, actually, I don't have any ideas for a piece." But she said, "I have absolute faith. You're going to find the right subject." I said, "Have you any idea what you want?" She said, "No, you'll just find the right subject." Up until June this year, I was still struggling for a subject. I still hadn't found a text. Ian Bendle, who's a wonderful member of this choir and a fantastic composer himself, he said to me after that, he said, "Why don't you do creation?" And I thought at the time, why would I do creation? For all kinds of reasons. I mean, why would a 21st century composer do this biblical myth? Very few people actually believe that that's literally true. Why would you do it? What does it have to say? And then I thought about the previous pieces I'd done. And I've got very interested in binary storytelling. So you have a piece like the Passion Fragment, where it tells the story of St. Peter's denial of Jesus, but at the same time it's interspersed with modern texts from Martin Luther King and so on. So it's taking a 21st century angle on it. So I thought, what would I do if I was doing creation? And it became immediately obvious that the biblical text about how God created the earth in 6 days needed to be interspersed with texts by 20th, 21st century composers about how we, humanity is destroying the planet. So the choir sings the biblical text of creation. You have to decide what soloist you're going to have. Normally you have a selection of SATB in a traditional oratorio, and I decided it was just going to be one alto because that would commemorate Christine. And the alto sings poems by a poet called Franta Bass, who was, I think he was Czech, and he died in Terezin when he was 14, so he was like Anne Frank, murdered by the Nazis, and he died in 1944, and he left behind just a very small number of very simple poems, which are just so powerful, and maybe they're more powerful for knowing the circumstances. And 3 poems I've used. There's one called The Rose. I've used the first and the last verse of a poem called The Rose, and a poem by him called The Garden, so it's slightly bigger, and a third poem called The World. So those poems are interspersed with the biblical text. And in the first of them, after the first day, the alto sings about how the rose is so beautiful, how it smells, how it looks. And in the second, after the second day, she sings about the last verse from Franta Bass's poem about how the rose has withered. And then she sings about the garden after the third day, and it's a beautiful garden, there's a little boy. And then after the 4th day, it's the last verse of the garden where she sings about the little boy's gone away, he's not there anymore, he's no more. And the last verse, after the 5th day, there's the world, and it's all about how the world's turning. And what happens in that 5th day is then there's a sort of orchestral interlude which describes, which I've called a procession. That's procession with an E, not procession, which is the astronomical term for the earth moving around the sun. So in this interlude, the orchestra plays 2 notes alternating in the same rhythm all the way through, to suggest the earth moving around as it rotates around the sun, and it gradually moves up through the orchestra, and at the climax it's very prominent. And then you sort of get the feeling, I think, at that point particularly, that this is more, the title is misleading. It's not so much about the creation, it's about our destruction or potential destruction. So I thought I have a children's choir, and after each day the children's choir sings an adaptation of words from Louis MacNeice's poem Prayer Before Birth. They're singing as children who are yet to be born, praying that they will live in a world which has trees, that has water, they won't get shut up by a dictator, that they'll be able to be free. So after the fifth day, in the sixth day, the alto sings the creation text and the choir sing Kyrie eleison against it. It builds up to a climax, and then we jump immediately from the first book of the Bible, Genesis, all the description of the creation, to John's vision of some kind of apocalypse where he describes 4 angels at the 4 corners of the earth, and then there follows some texts by Jeremiah and Isaiah which show what couldn't happen unless we change our ways. Now I mentioned the word unless, which is very important because all the way through this there's the word unless appearing, because it's not a foregone conclusion. And unless, setting the word unless again and again will have a resonance for most people of a certain age and younger, anyone who's read Dr. Seuss, because anyone who's read the Lorax, the word unless, it's right at the end of the Lorax, unless we change. So we do have that option. And I realised you can't have a work like this ending in total devastation. You have to have hope. And so the piece ends on a note of hope, saying that unless we cherish our beautiful world for our children to enjoy, for we are the gardeners of this world and we must see that it is good. And all the way through, because and God saw that it is good punctuates each day. And God saw that it is good, and the evening and the morning of the first day, and each creation, each aspect, and God saw that it is good. Now, as we get to the word man, there's a climax in day 6 on the word man, and this is followed by the words, and God saw that it was, but each time it's interrupted by the orchestra. So the words that end the piece, which are the alto, has the last word for Christine, and I hope that will have an extra poignancy, it just being one solo alto, and then she sings, for we are the gardeners of this world and we must see that it is good. So the ending is not really, and that seems very much to chime in with what Christine felt, and also of course with what I feel, that and it doesn't matter whatever your spiritual or religious belief, that it is up to us. It is now up to us. All the details are on the Lloyd's Choir website, and we're also doing the other works in the programme are Serenade to Music by Vaughan Williams, Elgar Give Unto the Lord, and the Wasps Overture with the orchestra, and that will be with the Cohen Ensemble. The fabulous Finchley Children's Music Group will be the children's choir, and we've got the wonderful May Haydon singing the alto solo. So very exciting programme, and very much hoping you'll be able to join us.